Your winter is rough? Try 6 months of darkness in 9th century Scandinavia with nothing but salted fish, your extended family who haven't bathed since September, and the very real possibility that a neighboring clan might decide your food stores look better than theirs. The Vikings didn't just survive winter, they thrived in conditions that would make modern preppers weep into their freeze-dried meals. And before you click away thinking this is just another history lecture, stick around, because I'm going to show you exactly how to apply their 1,200-year-old strategies to modern power outages, supply chain disruptions, and yes, even that increasingly unhinged winter weather we're all pretending is totally normal. Let's set the scene. You're in Norway around 850 AD. From November to February, the sun barely rises. We're talking 3-4 hours of twilight on a good day. Temperatures regularly hit -20 degrees Fahrenheit or -29 degrees centigrade. There are no grocery stores, no Amazon Prime, no running to the neighbors for eggs. Your survival depends entirely on what you stockpiled during the 4-month growing season. And let me tell you, the Vikings took this seriously. Here's what they were up against. Food spoilage. Without refrigeration, one mistake meant starvation. Fuel shortage. Run out of firewood in January? You're done. Mental health. Imagine being stuck inside with 15 people in a 400-square-foot longhouse for 6 months with no TV, no books, and your cousin Bjorn who won't stop talking about his new axe. Raiders. Because apparently some Vikings thought winter was the perfect time to raid their neighbors' food stores. Nothing says holiday spirit than armed robbery in a blizzard. The mortality rate for Norse winters was no joke. Historians estimate 5 to 10% of communities didn't make it through, usually due to starvation, disease, or what we'd now call cabin fever gone homicidal. The Viking food strategy. So how did they do it? 3 words: preserve, preserve, preserve. Fish, the foundation. Fish was the Viking equivalent of the modern prepper's rice and beans. They caught massive quantities during summer and preserved it through drying. Cod hung on outdoor racks for 2 to 3 months. The cold, dry air created stockfish, rock-hard fish that lasted literally years. You'd soak it in water to reconstitute it, and congratulations, you have dinner. Protein-rich, 0 refrigeration needed, and if you got desperate, you could probably use it as a weapon. Salting. Herring packed in salt barrels. Each family needed about 200 to 300 fish to make it through winter. That's not a typo. Fermenting. Hockerel, fermented shark, and rackfish, fermented trout. Yes, it smells like death. Yes, it tastes like regret. But it won't kill you, and it kept Vikings alive when everything else ran out. Sometimes survival isn't pretty. Meat, when you could get it. Smoking. Reindeer, sheep, and pork smoked over fires for weeks. The smoke created a preservative layer while the slow heat dried the meat. Salting. Same principle as fish. Cover it in salt, pack it tight, keep it cold. Sausage. Fermented sausages using salt and beneficial bacteria. Essentially, controlled rotting that makes food safe instead of lethal. Vikings understood food science before it was even called food science. Dairy gone wild. Skyr. This fermented dairy product, think super thick yogurt, lasted months and provided crucial protein and probiotics. Vikings made it in massive quantities. Cheese. Hard, aged cheeses that could last the entire winter. Butter. Salted and packed in barrels buried in peat bogs. Archaeologists have found 2,000-year-old bog butter that's still technically edible. Don't try this at home. Or do. I'm not your supervisor. Grains and vegetables. Barley. Dried and stored in waterproof containers used for porridge and beer. Yes, beer was safer to drink than water. Root vegetables, carrots, turnips, onions, stored in underground pits lined with straw. Wild herbs, dried for both cooking and medicine. Nuts. Hazelnuts stored in their shells lasted all winter. The math. A family of 6 needed approximately 1,500 pounds of dried fish, 300 to 500 pounds of grains, 200 pounds of preserved meat, 50 pounds of butter or cheese, plus vegetables, nuts, and preserved fruit. That's roughly 2,000 to 2,500 pounds of food. Start gathering in May, finish by October, or face the consequences. Fuel and heat. Food won't help you if you freeze to death, and Vikings were obsessed with firewood. The firewood formula. Each longhouse needed 10 to 15 cords of wood for winter. That's roughly 1,280 to 1,920 cubic feet of stacked wood. For reference, that's enough wood to fill a standard container twice. They started collecting firewood in spring and didn't stop until snow fell. Dead standing trees were prized, already dry, ready to burn. Green wood was cut in spring and dried all summer. Fire management tactics. The central hearth. Longhouses had a central fire pit running the length of the building. This single fire heated the entire space and was never allowed to go out. Someone was on fire duty 24/7. Heat retention. Thick turf roofs, 2 to 3 feet thick, and walls provided insulation. Modern R-value estimates suggest equivalent to R30 to R40 insulation. Sleeping arrangements. Everyone slept on raised platforms along the walls. Heat rises, and they maximized every BTU. Emergency backup. They kept fire-starting materials, flint, char cloth, and dry tinder in multiple locations. Lose your fire in January, that's how you become a cautionary tale. Modern application. Power outage preparedness isn't sexy, but it's essential. Here's the Viking-inspired modern approach. Heating backups. Propane heater, properly vented. Wood stove, if possible. Generator with stored fuel. Rotate every 6 months. Thermal blankets and cold weather sleeping bags. The 3-day rule. Vikings could restart their lives from their stored supplies. You should be able to survive 3 days minimum without power, heat, or water. That's not prepper paranoia, that's FEMA's official recommendation, and honestly, Vikings would call that soft. Mental survival. Here's what nobody tells you about Viking winter. The darkness didn't just threaten their bodies, threatened their minds. 6 months of darkness, cramped quarters, limited food, and the constant stress of survival created serious psychological challenges. So how did Vikings handle it? Structured routine. Vikings divided their day into strict segments. Morning, fire maintenance, checking food stores, morning meal. Midday, craft work like carving, weaving, tool repair. Afternoon, storytelling, games, and weapon maintenance. Evening, communal meal, more storytelling, and music. The routine provided psychological stability. Modern research confirms this. Humans need structure, especially in stressful situations. Storytelling and oral tradition. This wasn't just entertainment, it was psychological survival. Sagas, myths, and family histories were recited around the fire for hours. This served multiple purposes. Maintained cultural identity, passed down crucial survival knowledge, provided distraction from harsh conditions, strengthened community bonds, gave people hope by connecting them to their ancestors who survived previous winters. Craft work. Vikings didn't just sit around. They carved intricate designs into tools and weapons, wove textiles, made rope, created art. Modern psychology calls this flow state, focused activity that reduces anxiety and depression. Vikings called it not going insane. Physical activity. Even in brutal cold, Vikings went outside. Short periods of physical activity, checking livestock, gathering snow for water, quick hunting trips, broke up the monotony and prevented the lethargy that comes from being sedentary. Community accountability. Everyone had a role. Everyone contributed. You can't just check out mentally because your survival was tied to the group's survival. This enforced interdependence actually protected mental health. You had purpose, responsibility, and social connection. Modern application. Power outage mental prep. Have a plan. Just like Vikings had routines, you need a power outage plan written down before the power goes out. What you'll do hour by hour. Entertainment that doesn't need power. Books, cards, board games, musical instruments. Vikings had storytelling. You have a deck of cards and the humility to admit that you don't know how to play euchre. Maintain routine. Meal times, sleep schedules, activity periods. Don't let an outage turn you nocturnal and feral. Physical activity. Even if it's just walking around your house, move your body. Stagnation kills morale. Social connection. If you're alone, check on neighbors. If you have family, do group activities. Vikings survived because they were forced together. You might need to force yourself to engage.
Community and mutual aid. Here's where the Vikings get really interesting. Despite their reputation as individualistic raiders, their winter survival was fundamentally communal. Food sharing systems. Families didn't operate in isolation. Norse communities had informal but strictly enforced mutual aid networks. The feast obligation. Successful hunters shared meat with neighbors. This wasn't charity, it was investment. You shared your surplus now, others shared with you later. Communal storage. Some communities maintained shared food reserves in central buildings for emergencies. Trading networks. Even in winter, Vikings traded preserved goods. Your family has extra fish but needs grain? Trade. This kept resources flowing and prevented localized shortages. Social enforcement. Vikings had a concept called need, a social curse for those who violated community norms. Hoard food while neighbors starve? Face need. Refuse to help repair a neighbor's roof before winter? Need. This wasn't just about being nice, it was practical survival. Communities that cooperated survived. Communities that didn't, well, archaeological evidence suggests they didn't leave many descendants. Collective security. Winter raids were a real threat. Communities organized. Watch rotations, someone always on guard. Shared defense. Attack one house, you attack all houses. Resource pooling. Weapons, tools, and labor shared during emergencies. Modern application. Know your neighbors. Yes, I'm serious. Before the crisis, introduce yourself. Exchange phone numbers. Discuss basic emergency plans. No, I don't care if you're an introvert. Vikings were introverts too. 6 months of darkness will do that. But they still cooperated because survival demanded it. During a crisis, check on elderly neighbors, families with young children, anyone with medical needs. Share information about resources and conditions. Build redundancy. If your neighbor has a generator and you have a wood stove, you've both got backup heat. If you have medical supplies and they have food storage, you've both improved your situations. The lone wolf prepper fantasy is mostly fantasy. Vikings, literal warriors who fought bears for fun, still knew that community was essential for winter survival. The Viking Winter Prep Checklist. Alright, let's get practical. Here's how to apply 1,200 years of Norse wisdom to modern power outages and winter emergencies. Food storage, Viking style. Protein, canned fish, tuna, salmon, sardines, the modern stockfish. Dried beans and lentils, lasts 10+ years properly stored. Peanut butter, cheap, calorie-dense, shelf-stable. Canned meats, chicken, beef. Target 2,000 calories per person per day for 7 to 14 days minimum. Carbohydrates, rice. White rice lasts 10 years. Brown rice goes rancid faster. Pasta, oats, flour. Store in freezer to prevent weevils. You're welcome. Target 50 to 60% of daily calories. Fats. Vikings knew fat equals survival. Cooking oil, canola, olive, nuts, butter or ghee. Yes, it can be shelf-stable. Target 30 to 35% of daily calories. Vegetables and fruits. Canned vegetables, dried fruits, potato flakes, multivitamins, because scurvy isn't cute. The math. For a 3-day emergency, family of 4, 24,000 total calories needed, 6,000 per person. Roughly 30 to 40 cans of various foods, 5 to 10 pounds of rice, pasta, or grains. Cost $75 to $150 depending on sales. Water. Vikings had snow. You might not. 1 gallon per person per day minimum. 3-day supply equals 12 gallons for a family of 4. Store in food-grade containers, rotate every 6 months. Water purification tablets or filters as backup. Cost $15 to $30. Heat and fuel. If you have fireplace or wood stove, half a cord of seasoned firewood. 3-day emergency, fire starters, and waterproof matches. Cost $150 to $300 depending on region. No fireplace. Alternative heat. Propane heater, Mr. Heater Buddy, $100 to $150. Propane tanks, 2 20-pound tanks, $50 to $80. Carbon monoxide detector, required, $25 to $40. Thermal blankets, $20 for family pack. Cold weather sleeping bags, $50 to $100 each. Total cost, $300 to $500. Lighting. Vikings had oil lamps, you have better options. LED lanterns, 2 to 3, $30 to $60 total. Headlamps, 1 per person, $40 to $80 total. Batteries, lots, $30 to $50. Candles, backup, $10 to $20. Total cost, $110 to $210. Communication and information. Hand crank emergency radio, $30 to $60. Portable phone charger, 20,000 milliamp hour, $30 to $50. Solar charger, optional, $40 to $80. Total cost, $60 to $190. Sanitation. Vikings had outhouses. Your plumbing needs power. 5-gallon buckets with lids, $15 to $20. Heavy-duty trash bags, $10. Kitty litter or sawdust, $10. Baby wipes, $10 to $15. Hand sanitizer, $10. Total cost, $55 to $75. Medical and hygiene. First aid kit, Comprehensive, $40 to $60. Prescription medications, 30-day supply. Pain relievers, anti-diarrheal, antihistamines, $20 to $30. Feminine products, $15 to $25. Toothpaste, soap, toilet paper, $20 to $30. Total cost, $95 to $145. Tools and misc, multi-tool or pocket knife, $20 to $50. Duct tape, $5 to $10. Paracord or rope, $10 to $20. Tarp, $15 to $30. Work gloves, $10 to $15. Total cost, $60 to $125. Grand total for basic 3-day prep, $765 to $1,565. Can you do it cheaper? Yes. Shop sales, buy generic, skip fancy items. Core essentials, food, water, basic heat, can be done for $300 to $400. Can you do it better? Also yes. Vikings spent 6 months prepping for 6 months of winter. You can spend a few weekends prepping for realistic emergencies. The Viking mindset. Here's the real secret to Viking winter survival, and it wasn't the stockfish or the firewood, it was their mindset. Acceptance of reality. Vikings didn't hope for mild winters. They didn't pray for less darkness. They accepted that winter was brutal, prepared accordingly, and dealt with it. No wishful thinking, no denial, just pragmatic preparation. Modern equivalent. Don't assume the power grid is infallible. Don't assume supply chains won't be disrupted. Don't assume you'll be fine because it's never happened before. The Vikings who thought like that died in their first winter. Proactive, not reactive. Vikings didn't wait until October to start gathering food. They began in May. They didn't wait for the first snowfall to collect firewood. They worked all summer. Modern equivalent. Don't wait for the weather forecast to warn you about incoming storms. Don't wait for the power to go out to buy supplies. Prepare during good times so you're ready for bad times. Self-reliance with community backup. Vikings took personal responsibility for their family's survival, but maintained community networks. They didn't expect someone else to save them, but they also didn't refuse help or fail to offer it. Modern equivalent. Don't expect FEMA or the Red Cross to save you in the first 72 hours or longer. But also don't be the paranoid hermit who alienates everyone. Balance self-sufficiency with social cooperation. Mental toughness. Vikings understood that survival was as much mental as physical. They built mental resilience through routine, purpose, and community. Modern equivalent. A 3-day power outage shouldn't break you. Boredom isn't an emergency. Discomfort isn't catastrophe. You're tougher than you think, but only if you prepare your mind as well as your supplies. The cost of unpreparedness. Vikings who didn't prepare died. It was that simple. Modern consequences are usually less severe, but here's what unpreparedness costs. Financial. Emergency hotel stay during a power outage, $150 to $300 per night. Eating out, $50 to $100 per day for family. Emergency supply purchases at gouged prices, 2 to 3 times normal cost. Safety. Driving on dangerous roads to find open stores. Using unsafe heating methods. Making desperate decisions under stress. Stress. Family conflict over lack of preparation. Anxiety about basics like food and warmth. Loss of sense of control.
Time for brutal honesty. Most people reading this won't do any of this. You'll think, that's smart, I should prepare. Then immediately forget about it until the power goes out. Then you'll panic buy whatever's left at the store. Spoiler, it's the weird canned vegetables nobody wanted. And tell yourself you'll do better next time. Vikings didn't have that luxury. Neither should you. The Vikings survived 6 months of darkness, sub-zero temperatures, and the constant threat of starvation or violence through meticulous preparation, community cooperation, and mental toughness. You're facing power outages that might last 72 hours, maybe a week if things get really bad. You have access to resources Vikings couldn't even imagine. Grocery stores, online shopping, modern heating technology, instant communication. So why are you less prepared than a 9th century Scandinavian warrior? Here's your action plan. This week, buy a 3-day supply of non-perishable food and water. Cost $100 to $150. This month, add heat backup and lighting. Cost $200 to $400. This season, complete the full checklist. Cost $800 to $1,600 total, but spread it out. This year, practice. Turn off your breaker for 24 hours and see what you forgot. Vikings didn't get second chances. You do. Use them. Winter is coming. It comes every year. The Vikings knew this, you know this. The only question is whether you'll do something about it or keep pretending that it won't happen to me. Your ancestors survived ice ages with stone tools. You can survive a winter storm with a Costco membership and a weekend of preparation. Now stop watching YouTube and go buy some canned tuna. If you found this useful, hit subscribe so you don't miss the next video where we're covering how ancient Egyptians stored grain for 7 years of famine. And yes, we're doing the math on what that would cost today. Drop a comment telling me if you're actually going to prepare or if you're just gonna wing it and hope for the best. Vikings would judge you. I'm just here for the comments. And if you need me, I'll be organizing my stockpile of canned goods like the rational, definitely not paranoid person I am.